Hello, everybody. My name is Pasha Marlowe, and this is the Let Pleasure Be the Measure podcast. I am thrilled to be back, happy to be here with all of you. I've missed you. I come back with such a fantastic guest, Ali Hendry, coming in from the UK. Ali, who I've been following on Instagram and Clubhouse for quite some time now, is a holistic relationship coach, a speaker, a trainer, and a performer and a comedian. So we have a lot in common, and she's a pleasure and a joy. Welcome, Ali.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I think we've been following each other. So it's been mutual stalking all above board. So great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you. Yes, I believe we originally met on Clubhouse, and it was one of the very first days I came out, and you were so generous in your support and telling me your story. And you were married to a man and now a woman. Is that right?
Yeah. I had one of each, married to a man and then married to a woman, 2 divorces, entering my 50s as a divorced premenopausal co-parent. So sounds good for the marketing. Yeah, so we had that in common, and we had impro in common, didn't we? Improvisation. So yes. Just talking about coming out a little bit later. I mean, I was 28 when I came out. So I think nowadays that's probably quite late. There wasn't as much awareness around queer, lesbian, gay back then in the 1800s. So we were sort of talking about coming out that a little bit later.
And it's June, Pride Month here. Do you celebrate Pride Month in the UK?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Oh,
it's interesting actually it being June, because we have every year in Brighton, we have people come from far and wide on the south coast. It's kind of like the gay city of the UK, Brighton. There's a lot of us around. We all sort of come down here, and we get loads and loads of people coming in for August. So for us, that's when the big thing tended to happen. Historically, obviously it hasn't happened because of COVID times, but all the shops putting up flags and selling rainbow, memorabilia. So it's happened now as well, and lots of events and celebrations, and actually being a lot more interested in history and backgrounds and politics around it, which I think is the way that we need to be going right now. The whole celebrating, drinking, smoking, all that kind of stuff is out there, and there's a place for that. But I've found that certainly this time the month has been a lot more about where are we at? Yes, we're doing well, but gosh, there's also a lot of things that need to still happen for a lot of different countries, and for our, for your country and my country, particularly in various regions. So don't take your eye off the ball, but permission to celebrate. Yeah.
Yes. Celebrate, party, but also make change. And I didn't realize how much straight privilege was prevalent, or how much inclusion was a necessary thing we all need to learn more about until the last year. So it's certainly been eye-opening.
No, I agree. And I think certainly I've seen in the last 2 years, there's been a lot on allyship, and a lot of the corporate organizations that I do work for, being sort of the corporate trainer side of things, you see people in their signature blocks putting comments about being a straight ally. So that awareness is definitely coming in. Boards are a lot more aware of the diversity of their workforce than they ever were.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm so glad that that's change is happening. And you do holistic relationship coaching. Do you specifically work with clients in the LGBTQ community or beyond?
I, at the moment, yes, and that's the area that I'm in and I'm happy with. I like to work with women with an X, so women who are women, non-binary, trans folk. So anyone who's comfortable with the terminology around, female space. That historically has been where I've done a lot of my work in the past. So kind of like 30, 40 years ago when I started, not 40 years ago. How old am I? I've just added on 10 years to the age. 52. Just made myself 62. When I started running workshops when I was living in London, they were improvisation workshops for women. So that female space, I saw a value for it. And naturally, as a gay woman myself, was attracting that demographic in that community. But also there were straight women, bisexual women, as well as gay women. So and trans women as well. So a mixture. But in terms of my clientele, yeah, women who are comfortable being in that female space or who want that female space. You know, there are so many coaches, and let's face it, there's been a gazillion that have popped up and are constantly popping up, which is great because it's a great resource. Everyone should have a coach. I've got one. And why would I be one if I don't have one? So it's a great resource. Obviously, make sure they're certified and got all the right bits and bobs that they need. But I think to be able to niche is really important for some people. So why not? You know, what do I want to spend 24 hours talking about? Actually, I want to talk about relationships. That's what I want to do. So that's my niche. That's my area. That's what I'm interested in.
And what makes it holistic? How do you perceive holistic? Really?
So holistic, you know, I believe that we all have absolutely everything that we need. Sometimes we need someone to walk alongside us to help us release some of those things within us. The focus is very much on mind, body, and spirit, spirituality. So bringing out those areas in my clients. Some people aren't into the spirituality, or they're not into the body side or the mind side. You know, some of them will be, I'm not wanting to explore that as much, but it's available to them. It's open to them. So I can do some exercises. We can go down paths that recognize spirituality, you know, that work on that, the body side, work on the mind side. So it gives that kind of mix. I mean, we're all three anyway, right? You know, there's been so many studies about how emotions are in our bodies, you know, spirituality. So they all intertwine. It just feels absolutely right for me and the way that I approach my world, my life, to have those three kind of spliced together.
Yes. I definitely, once we think holistically, it's almost impossible to understand how people don't conceive of coaching in any form, whether it's physical fitness or emotional health or business coaching, that it wouldn't be holistic. You're missing so much of the piece of the puzzle if you don't think of the mind, the body, and the spirit. So I'm glad you're doing that. But you very specifically go into relationship coaching, and then recently have been talking a lot about jealousy. And I'm curious as to why you're just passionate about jealousy right now.
Yeah. It's a universal topic, isn't it? I mean, it's one of those things that we've either done it, felt it, had both at the same time. You know, it features in every type of relationship. That could be a business relationship, that could be a romantic relationship, could be, you know, your upbringing in terms of jealousy. And so I'm just really interested in how it shows itself. I've struggled with it. I've definitely struggled with it on both sides, where I've been in relationships where I've been very jealous. I've been in relationships where there's been lots of jealousy at me. And that was an interesting turnaround, because I was like, oh, right, yes, that's what it feels like. Interesting. And just started in the last year or so, since completing my studies as a holistic relationship coach, researching it, you know, loads of podcasts, books, talking to people, questionnaires, etc., attracting clients who want to talk about jealousy issues as well. Like you said, with Clubhouse. So I do a Monday 19:30 BST relationship room for Diva community. So we have different topics each week. And we recently did jealousy, actually. Of course, we'll do it again, lots and lots of times. And it's just fascinating hearing different people's stories around jealousy. There was one that particularly stood out, where a woman who said, you know, I'm a feminine woman and a femme woman, and my girlfriend's femme as well. And she said, where I get the most amount of jealousy is when a guy, you know, hits on one of us. And we were talking about what that's about. And it was about this kind of invisibility. You know, you don't exist to me. You are somebody that I can hit on. Your sexuality doesn't exist to me, and therefore it's been gaslighted. And it was really interesting how that was the main kind of jealousy experience in that setting, because, you know, it shows up in so many different ways. It's not the traditional, where have you been? What do you smell of? What's that lipstick on your collar? You know, all that stuff.
Right.
That monkey brains us.
Not necessarily about infidelity specifically. And jealousy within friendships, do you see that a lot, or do you?
Yes. Yeah. I've definitely had that, where clients have come to me about friendships. You know, I believe that a friendship can be a romantic relationship as well. Obviously, there's no sex. Well, sometimes there is, because there's friends with benefits. But some of those things I know with my friendships, there's a romantic element. One of my friends particularly, we tell each other, we sign off I love you, we send each other flowers and cards. We've never slept together, we don't have that in us, but that side of romance and caring is there. So I think that can be there in the same way in terms of when a friendship ends, or when jealousy comes, when there's a third person arriving, because of course jealousy and envy are those two that they get mixed up quite a lot. So the jealousy being that fear of loss, fear of losing something, in this instance losing something to someone else, whereas envy is about wanting something that someone else has got. And so of course you can have elements of both, but I'm more specifically interested in what's around the psychology, the mind, the body, the spirit, to do with that jealousy side and that fear of loss. Yeah.
Okay. And the fear of loss, fear of abandonment, is that a common theme?
That's a biggie. Yeah, for me anyway, not for everybody. That's definitely a biggie. Who we are, as I'm sure all the stuff around attachment and our first experience of relationships as children to our parents, and how we take those into adulthood, and sometimes we model those types of relationships. And certainly it makes a lot of sense to me now. I'm not an expert in attachment, but I've done a lot of reading around it. I'm a coach as opposed to a therapist or a counselor, and it's important to make that distinction. I expect you find it as well. People get confused. So with a therapist or a counselor, they tend to look back to the past with a view to healing the past. Whereas us coaches, we have a different set of rules and regulations. We have code of ethics, etc. But ours is very much about looking at where are you at now. Of course, we can talk about the past in terms of who you are now and where you are now and what you feel about the past. But we look at the now, where you want to be, and how you can get there. How I can ask my questions to help you get there. So with attachment, looking back on some of my relationships where I was like, okay, as an avoidant, being in a relationship with an anxious, that was not going to work well, was it? Chaos reigns. So it helps you. I mean, that's one of my values. I've just been doing a lot of work on my business and putting together my own core values for the business. And one of them is cultivate curiosity. I think that's really important. And what can come out of cultivating curiosity is vulnerability. It takes you into that vulnerable state by having that curiosity. And all the work by Brené Brown that we love around intimacy and connection and the importance of growth. Vulnerability allows growth. Those little plants that are shriveling away and they have to fight to get through, they come back really strong and lush because they've had that vulnerability. So we get a lot from that, and that can come from that curiosity place.
Yes, it's a beautiful place. Curiosity over criticism, and finding that it's an interesting. And I want to circle really quickly back, and I apologize because this was my ADHD brain showing. But I used to be a marriage and family therapist, so my degree is in therapy, and now I'm a coach. And you're correct, in my training, which was now 20 something 5 years ago, it was so much focused on the past, which is why I left the career. It just didn't resonate with me, and I wanted to be more preventative. And yet now there is, I just want to put it out there, positive psychology and a lot of change and shift in the therapy world to be more future focused. Not all therapeutic modalities are like that, but so many of my friends are now walking that line between coach and therapist. And
yes, a lot.
And sometimes it just comes down to insurance and
yes, absolutely. I mean, the relationship, I did write her name down because I thought we might be sort of talking about some people. She is a holistic psychologist and has just written a book.
Yes,
doing the work. Yeah.
Yes, and I cannot recall at the moment her name either, although I get texts from her every day.
Her name is Nicole LePera, Dr. Nicole LePera.
Yes.
And I love her work because that's like, my first degree was a psychology degree. So my curiosity around what makes humans human, what makes us tick, is around that, is the psychology and the human behavior. So to come across her work, I also love that it all came through Instagram. I mean, how terribly modern, all the kind of the build up and the book and everything. So it's great to see social media being used in that way.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for entertaining that. I just didn't, because in the past I really have been more maybe down on therapy, and coaching is the way to go. And I'm now seeing a wonderful trend of therapists who also have this more expansive way of thinking, but also that within the field, it's more supported to be expansive in our thinking and forward thinking. So anyhow, but coming back
anyone
yeah,
sorry, I was going to say, anyone who talks about morning practices and the power of silence and meditation, we need to value that power of silence in the morning, giving ourselves, prayer and meditation, the value of that. So why wouldn't we value having just 2 or 3 moments of silence as we get up in the morning? So talking about how we can create those gratitude lists and those things. I mean, certainly in lockdown, all of those practices for me have occurred in a big way and have stayed on. So I really value those morning self-care practices. Yeah,
that tends to be the time for people who are actively parenting as well. Just before the children wake up, there's a moment where we have our own self to take care of.
Some of my clients, I actually talk to them at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 4 o'clock their time and not mine, because it's America. So I'm like, yes, that's a win. So so I'm with them at 4 o'clock. So they do an hour before their young kids get up. I mean, that's dedication. That's just beautiful. Wow, amazing.
And a life-saving hour. I'm sure they look forward to it. It's just, to feel grounded in yourself and focus on, we hear self-care and all these practices, try to meditate, try to go for a walk. And sometimes the day just gets away from us as mothers. And so it's beautiful that you offer that. And what a wonderful exchange that you're in the UK.
Yeah, I know. Handy. But I mean, what do we tell kids to do? We know that we need to help them self-regulate. How do you self-regulate? By coming back into your body. How do you come back into your body? You already have these daily practices. You know how to meditate. You know how to do the breathing. You know how to take that moment. You know how to tune into your body. Your body gives you so much information, and we're so good at not listening to it. So
we are.
If yeah.
And even people who teach it are hard. It's hard for us to listen.
Yeah.
Yes. And so circling back for a moment to jealousy, because you were differentiating the beginning, as we talked about jealousy, envy, and then passion you mentioned as well. So what is the correlation between jealousy and passion for you?
I think it's an interesting one. I mean, we know that phrase, what you resist persists.
Right.
And also we know that in kink as well, there is something about that stuff that in your daily life you're kind of around. You want the opposite in kink sometimes. So I know it's a cliche, but I can talk about my own personal experience of partners who have high stress jobs where there's a lot of control and a lot of driving things forwards, and they want to be tied up, and that's because of that kind of release of, I don't want to do that that's my kink. I want to do the opposite.
Okay.
So I was quite interested in how jealousy features and looking at my own experiences where actually when somebody, so my situation is that serial monogamist for years and years, as we said, married to a man, married to a woman, then some very significant long-term relationships with women, and now I'm in a relationship with a woman, and it's an open relationship. So I have a primary partner and we both have sex with other people. So that's the situation now. So ripe for jealousy, I've done it. I've put myself in this situation of the jealousy, and I'm a middle child. So in terms of that jealousy side and, not getting what you want, not being seen and all that stuff, it's all in there. So well done me for putting myself in that situation. But it works because of boundaries. And we probably don't have time to go into all of that. Right. I'd love to come back and talk about that, because that'd be really
your
interesting.
Boundaries and consent, I'm sure.
Yeah, and how you set that up so that it works. But going back to the jealousy with relationships where they've been open that I've had, there is something about so if you're having a threesome, for example, and your partner is having a sexual exchange with someone else, like I get this sort of jealousy and bitey desire at the same time. It's like this gritty bitey desire. It's like, no, don't do that, I'll do it. So I know that for me, something that I've struggled with for years in terms of the jealousy, and now I'm in a place where for me I've found some things that work for me to deal with it. and to move through it in a positive way and to learn from it. But when I'm in that moment, it's still there, and actually it stokes things up. Jealousy comes from the word zealous, so over emotional, and it's one of those ones that quite often there's quite a lot of shame around. Oh, you shouldn't feel jealous because that means you're insecure. No, it doesn't. It just means I'm feeling jealous. Jealousy is a complex set of emotions. There's so much going on, like you said, abandonment, attachment. One of the things for me is I'm hyper aware of risk, scanning for risk, and again, I can track that back to suddenly finding out at 16 my parents were divorcing, and then my first significant boyfriend finding out he had an affair. So it's like I've gone into relationships looking for risk, looking for things that might not be so, that what you're telling me isn't actually what's going on. There's a secret there. So that has come out, and that's one of my underpinnings for jealousy. I can see that, but that's just for me. For other people, there can be other reasons. So I find it really fascinating how it impacts my sex. And there's a term, compersion, as well, that the polyamorous community use, which I know you're familiar with as well, which is where so compersion is where you see your other significant other engaging in, usually in a sexual act, and you feel happy for them. You feel happiness for them. It's not like codependence. You still have your own feelings, right. but you can feel happy on their behalf. And it's not the reverse. It's not the opposite of jealousy. So I have felt compersion and jealousy at the same time. So it's not like, oh, great, I'm comperting. It's brilliant. There'll be no jealousy.
I've evolved compersion, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. They both have their place. So yeah, I love that compersion moment.
I love the component that we could have jealousy and compersion and envy and a fear of abandonment and pleasure all in the same moment, that we could hold all of that, and that we're so complex and paradoxical that that's become, in terms of being zealous, like so alive and so much present to the moment. And it does heighten our awareness and our experience. And sometimes it makes it more challenging and more difficult, but then it also allows the space for us to be even more excited or more in pleasure. So yeah, I love
when
that
you work. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll get very excited. When you work through jealousy with your romantic partner or partners, it brings you closer together by fact of being able to have those difficult conversations, by showing that courage, by showing that bravery. Even now, having been through these experiences and the work that I do, I still, if I meet someone that I know that I want to have a sexual interaction with, then to talk to my partner about it, I think about it. I have to, my first reaction is, oh, do I have to say something? Can't I just do it? But that's not the life that I live. Another one of my values is honesty, and honesty in this instance is the best policy, because you've got this contract together. You've decided what you're going to do. I know, and it's different for both of us. So I know that I don't want to know when she's met someone and when she's going to go and meet someone and when they're going to go and have sex. Don't need to know that. Don't need to. Whereas she wants to know in advance, wants me to text before and after, and then make sure that we talk on the phone or FaceTime or meet up. So that connection is there. Whereas for me, I'm like, don't need to know until next time we see each other, because we don't live together. Then that's the point where, when we're in a safe, secure, loving environment, you can tell me. And also the amount of questions that you need or you don't need. This is another thing that I've learned. I don't need to, because I'm a coach, I want to go and ask all these questions. Don't need to, because my monkey brain will give a whole set of other answers and a whole set of other questions that have no place there. They actually don't belong to the response, because what I'll do is I'll do that whole bias thing where I'll hear what I want to hear. And then my next question will be based on what I think has been said when it hasn't. Yeah. So I've actually learned a lot from my current relationship, because she didn't want to know. She's just kind of like, I just want to know that we're okay and that you're not different and that we can move forwards. In past relationships, we've talked about it, and it's been really sexy talking about what we've done with other people, but it's also had an edge to it. for me, where the monkey brain will go, yeah, but does that mean that she's hotter than me or sexier than me, or that you want to have more threesomes and less twosomes, so that whole, I know now what works for me, but it's a journey.
It is. And in a group that I lead called Bite Out of Life, which originated as bisexual women who were just coming out and they were in heteronormative relationships, but expanding to open up with relationships with women. And sometimes that's in threesomes or polyamory, but a lot of times it's just in having the conversation with their current partner. And this is true for any relationship, is to talk about, what do you consider cheating or infidelity? What are the boundaries? And it's different for everybody. So it's what you're saying. It just requires this raw, honest conversation, very clear boundary setting, so that there's an understanding of what each person is okay with. And I imagine that you would have to reestablish that, and
all the time.
And do you ever reestablish those boundaries in the midst of intimacy, or do you always wait? I'm just curious.
There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place. You can't always do the optimum, but it is better when you're going for a walk, around a lake and sitting on a bench and having a chat, as opposed to in the middle of, El Flagrante, however you pronounce it. So there's a time and a place. Things change. You change. We don't. Yes. That's the thing about relationships that I think we forget. I'm always changing. They're always changing. The relationship is always changing. So it can't be fixed. It doesn't exist. It's water. It's flowing constantly. So the only way that you can navigate it is by those questions, is that, curious inquiry, and finding out what's true and what's there, and setting your boundaries and saying what is going to work for you. And if they say, well, I can't do that, then you have, it's not a rule. It's not like they're going to do that and you have to suck it up. It's not that rule. It's a boundary where it's like, this will be really difficult for me. And then they're saying, well, I don't know if I can do that. And then you have that choice to have that conversation, really difficult conversation, to say, okay, well, let's look at something else, or what can we do, or how can we move through this? There's a lot of chat. But in terms of the cheating thing, for me, I've never been more tuned into my body, because I know if something, I can feel it. I'm like, oh, that's a kind of there's kind of discord in there, in terms of, I feel I need to say something about this situation. And that's to do with anything, let's bring it back to our bodies. Let's see when our mind is going, oh, I think we should just talk about everything's fine. No, not really. We need to look at that. We need to have a conversation, because I can feel something in my, in my sternum, or I can feel it in my core.
Yes. And that allows us to circle back to coming into those beautiful morning moments where we're just really still with ourselves. That might be a wonderful opportunity to check in. How does my relationship feel? How does opening up my relationship honor my body, my mind, my spirit, and really checking in with our knowing. Absolutely. When we're not influenced by other people's desires or their own belief systems.
And, use your friends, use your community, but also be aware that they're not coaches. So they have the outcome in mind. They know exactly what they want for you, and they want the best for you, and they want to hold you, and they know your story. A lot of our friends and community, with the coach, they are absolutely looking at what you want and allowing you to find out what you want without influence. So it's that absolutely neutral, non-judgmental environment where you can truly say, why am I doing the main question? Why am I opening up my relationship? Or why did I want my next relationship to be open? We went into this open, and I have to say my experience is so much easier going into it at the beginning, saying, this is, I subscribe to an open relationship. Let's have a discussion about how that would feel for you. Because my partner hasn't had that before. So it's sort of been easier in a way, because we've been able to make up our own rules instead of the chaos of let's open up something that's already established. But then, like we said before, relationships are fluid. So why wouldn't you? But if you can use a neutral party to say, why do I want to open it up? And one thing that I'm sure the community might talk about this. So sometimes people open it up because there's something missing from their current relationship. Yeah. That's not a great starting point.
I love that you said that. It comes up all the time in conversation. Yeah. The reason why often women want to expand and consider having their first relationship with another woman is because the relationship that they're currently in with their husband or male partner is not working. And so we always say, this isn't a good place to start another relationship. Let's get you back to your center and grounded and safe and in your knowing, and then determine so that it's not out of rage or jealousy or retort or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it, it's about bringing something to the relationship, not filling a gap that wasn't there already. And you're right, talking about intention. What is my intention? Is your intention to feel more of a sense of freedom? I mean, Esther Perel, brilliant, love her work so much. Erotic distance, and talking about how we need that erotic distance. We strive in relationships for connection and closeness, but we also want distance. And actually, she talks about how one of the most attractive things is when your loved one is doing something they're passionate about. You watch them playing an instrument, or you watch them painting a picture or reading a book, quietly. That's when you are most attracted to them. Why? Because they don't need nothing from you. They don't need anything from you, and they are in their passion and their power. And that's a really amazing thing to experience. I'm getting tingles. I've got shorts on today. Sun's come out. I've got tingles on my legs thinking about that, but it's true, isn't it?
It's so interesting because when you mention this, and I agree, this is when I'm most attracted to my current partner, is when he's in his passion, which happens to be drumming, African drumming. And I assume for him, it's me, empowering women and doing my therapeutic comedy work and podcasting. And yet this is also the place in our relationship where we experience the most amount of conflict and jealousy, because when he's stepping away to do his passion, he's stepping away from time together. And it's not so much that I miss him, it's just less convenient when I have to do everything on my own. So I'm like, I want him to do these things.
Yeah. But I wonder how much of it is I don't need you. I wonder how much of it is I am in my flow and I don't need you right now. So that can stimulate the jealousy feelings as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see how there's a lot of dynamics there that I would need to uncover outside of just the time that it takes to have a passion or a hobby. Yes, I think it's just the moment I'm in right now where it's easier when we're both home to both take care of our son. And yet I have to recognize that I need to step away from it in order to be refueled and energized, and he does as well. So supporting each other in our passions. Pulling that jealousy and passion all together in that thought just clicked for me. So thank you.
Yeah.
A moment of awareness. And I actually love the idea that you mentioned at the beginning of friendships being romantic, because right now my primary relationships that are very loving are with my female friends, non-sexual, all of them. But those are the women and the people and the humans right now that I'm expressing love to and are holding me in my space right now. So that's a beautiful thought, that it's romantic. And I could see how that really opens us up to accepting each other more as so important in each other's lives, and why jealousy and passion come into those conversations as well. Yeah. Complex. Oh, I lost your sound for a second.
Oh, I'm here.
There you are.
There I am.
In case you were saying something very wise.
Nothing. Oh yeah, it was the most important part of the whole thing.
That was it.
No, go.
So just in case we're losing sound for whatever reason across the pond, as I say, how can people find you, Ali, and follow you in your work?
So yeah, start with the website, which is alihendry.co.uk, and you can find me on Twitter, Ali Hendry. You can find me on Instagram and Clubhouse, which is the Ali H with underscores between each of those words. But it's all on the website, so you can link from there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's such a pleasure talking to you again. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom and your story, and for opening up about your own personal story. That always makes it so much more rich and dynamic. So I appreciate.
You're welcome. I mean, I'm kind of thinking about documenting it. I mean, as I said, you know, we have our own coaches as coaches, and I've got a relationship coach, and I'm also thinking of documenting, because we've only been together for 3 months. So it's a really interesting journey to be so conscious within this relationship. You know, the most conscious I've ever been in a new relationship. So sort of thinking of taking people on a journey in terms of how we're navigating things, I think could be interesting. So thank you for that for me, and realizing that it's been great to talk about all of those things with you here today. I've really loved it.
Good. Thank you. Such a pleasure. And if anyone out there enjoyed this episode, please like it, review it, share it, and keep subscribing to the podcast. You could find me at pashamarlow.com or on Facebook or Instagram at pashamarlow. And then I also offer a free, I call it liberation call. I just want to meet you. Let's, tell each other our stories and find ways to think about what it is you really desire and what's in your pleasure, and make those changes that will light you up, break you open, and light you up, hopefully, and create some wonderful change. So
I strongly recommend everybody does it. Pasha
yes.
is such a cool person to hang out with people. So just book it in. Even if you don't do anything with it afterwards, something's going to come out of it. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, every conversation I have with somebody, whether I'm on the receiving end with a coach or I'm coaching, something always comes up that's a revelation, and what gets revealed gets healed. And so we just need to keep having these conversations. So it lights me up. It was a highlight of my day. So thank you again, Ali.
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. See you soon.
Yes.
Hear you soon.
Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.